Hi Sean, how you doing, mate? Thanks for coming on the show.
Kev, how's it going, man? How's lockdown treating you in Essex?
Yeah, it's all right, mate. The sun's always shining in Essex, so it's all right.
Your 3 dogs must be jumping up the walls, mate.
Yeah, I know. They keep us busy, that's for sure. They're all right. They're getting plenty of walks, so yeah, it's not too bad. How about you?
Yeah, not bad. We've just moved house, so actually we've got loads of DIY stuff to do. But I'm kind of running out of supplies now, so all the hardware shops are closed. But you know what? Actually, I can't complain. I was meant to be away now in America for 6 weeks, and that got cancelled. So I'm now just spending time with my son and wife, and that's great, you know, because he actually just started crawling like last week, and I would have missed that. Imagine that. I would have missed his first little awkward crawls on the carpet. So yeah, it's nice to be home. Yeah,
there's plenty of time, isn't there, to spend with the family. Like, as you know, I've got two kids, or a minor teenager, so they're spending most of their time in their bedroom. they're locked down in their bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I mean, they're supposed to be at school. Easter holidays have just finished, so really today is their first day sort of back at school. So we're going to get them up in a bit and get them to do some homework. You know, they're doing the online stuff, but yeah, it's an interesting time, that's for sure.
And if I had teenagers, I'd be like military dad, like, right, 6 a.m., pots and pans, get up, come on, what are you doing? Get out of bed, push up, go.
You wait till you got a teenager. It's not as easy as that. They just go, yeah, whatever.
Shut up.
Yeah, shut up, Dad. Yeah, cool. Okay, mate. Well, so there's obviously some listeners that are going to be listening to the show that know who you are, but could you just give the people that are listening who don't know who you are a bit of an insight into who Sean is and what you do?
Well, what do I do? I guess I've sort of made a go of sort of trying to break world records in the world of ultra endurance. So for me, I've been chasing the 3 Fs: world's firsts, world's furthests, and world's fastest for the last 10 years. And that's kind of it. You know, I try and just either go and break someone else's record or set a new record for other people to then kind of have a crack at as well. So I get lumped in the sort of category as, you know, called adventurer, I guess, because people understand if he's an adventurer, people kind of understand what that is. Whereas actually, I'm probably a non-professional ultra endurance athlete, and that's a little bit too long to put on the business card. So adventurer is kind of what I go with, I guess. But technically, I'm a non-professional sportsman.
Cool. Okay, mate. Brilliant. And as I mentioned in the intro, so you've done some incredible challenges and record-breaking cycling and running and swimming and stuff like that. But recently, you did a couple of years ago. Your last record attempt was the Europe cycle record. So this show is going to be about that. Really going to focus on that. So can you tell people a little bit about what that was all about, please?
Yeah. So in these 3 Fs, world's firsts, furthests, and fastest, I had achieved a world's first when I swam the length of Britain back in 2013. I then achieved the second F, which was a world's furthest, in 2016, when I did the world's longest triathlon of 4,000 miles, I think it was in the end. And so I just had this third F, this world's fastest. And I always knew I wanted it on the bicycle, and I tried loads of things. I tried to get around the world cycling record. I tried to get the Route 66 cycling record, got injured. I then tried to go for the Across Europe cycling record in 2017, but got injured on that as well. And I was pretty depressing, I wasn't getting any younger. I just kept thinking, I'm too old. I'm getting injured. I can't keep up. I can't keep the pace, basically. That's the one thing that as you get older you struggle with, is your power will go down, right? Just biologically that happens. Your endurance will stay, and your stamina probably gets better, but your core, like punch power, and often you need that punch power for speed stuff. And yes, it was playing on my mind, and then eventually 2018 came around, I thought, you know what, like, I need to have another crack at this. I still feel I've got it in me. And then yeah, so I just decided, right, let's do it properly now. And then that's also when you came on board, when I thought, well, let's, it'd be fun to get my mate in a camper van to follow me, see if he can keep up. And then that brought you into the picture. So yeah, it was 2018 was all about the across Europe cycling world record.
Brilliant. So a lot of people will be obviously astounded by the sort of distances that you can cycle. If we take you back to the kind of like weeks and months leading up to that challenge, how do you prepare, like mentally and physically, when you know that you've got like a huge distance to cycle? It's not like your everyday kind of like 50-mile ride.
Yeah, it was a tough ride. 165 miles a day, self-supported. That is hard. Like, don't get me wrong, no one can just get out of bed and do that. However, it's from an actual, if you got people to just kind of go on a flat road where there was good food and the road quality was good and there was no headwinds, and there was a service station every 50 miles, that becomes doable. It becomes achievable. Where 165 miles a day becomes really difficult is all of a sudden when you're in Eastern Europe and you're on roads that are just potholed or gravel, and trucks are flying past your ears, and you're miles and miles and miles, 100 miles between services to get food, and even when you get food, it's a packet of crisps and all that sort of thing. That makes the 165 a lot harder. For example, I still have the self-supported Europe record, but the supported Europe record, it smokes me. I think it's 230, 240 miles a day, because you don't really have to worry about, a lot of stuff. You've got a van following you with bright lights, so at night you can see the potholes. They're giving you food and water and that sort of thing. So it was tough, but it wasn't like I could still have like 4 hours sleep, which is nice, because often some of these shorter races, like the Across America one, you're sleeping 90 minutes a day type thing. So it was a different type, the self-supported thing, in foreign countries with foreign language as well. You'd be surprised how, you'll lose 5 miles a day in just trying to communicate what food you want in all your stops, because in a different language. But how did I prepare? So, I've done 60,000 miles of bike packing since 2011. And your body really uses all those miles and stores them, really. It stores those miles. So in the early days, in 2011, when I was going for the round the world bike race in 2012, when I was training in 2011, I was putting in 40 hours a week. 20 of those hours was Saturday. Saturday, I would always do 4 a.m. till midnight on the bike, and I'll sort of do London up to Lincolnshire type thing, or London to Leeds, and then catch the last sort of early morning train home. I'd sort of sleep up in a bush or something, or do London, Norfolk and back, or London, Brighton, across to sort of Southampton, Bournemouth and back again, So I was doing these sort of 200, 220 mile Saturday rides. So 40 hours a week. And that really kind of didn't set me up completely for something I did 10 years later. Of course not. But it really builds the sort of your quality of hard tissue, really. Because there's 3 types of training: endurance, power, and injury avoidance. And those are the 3 I need to kind of focus on the bike. And the injury avoidance one is the one that'll stay. The longer you do stuff, the more robust you kind of get. Your power might go down as you get older, but your robustness certainly stays with you a bit longer, which is why, all the sort of super ultra marathon runners are all in their 40s up to in their 50s even, because you just get, you stay resilient for longer because you've just had more pressure on your hard tissue,
Yeah, sure. And on the actual the day of the ride, like what goes through your head that morning when you wake up. I mean, if you've got some kind of, there must be so many emotions going through your head. Have you got some kind of filter? Are you one of these people that just can block it out? Or is it just like, oh, this is
a little bit. It's a bit of a mixture. I've got two very distinctive kind of sides of my brain, and it depends on what mood I am. It depends if I'm ahead or behind the record. It depends on the weather. It depends on many things. Kind of which part of my brain I play with. So I've, for the one side, I've got this really logical side of me. Like, right, I need to get from A to B as quick as possible. How can I do that? And I call them the 5 pistons of endurance. You've got food, water, sleep, muscle management, and motivation. Those are your 5 pistons of endurance. There's also a 6th one, which is planning, which you usually that's before the actual ride. So before the ride, you've got your 6 pistons: planning, food, water, sleep, muscle management, motivation. But on the ride, your planning's pretty much done. I'm just thinking of those 5 pistons. Have I had the right amount of food? What's in it? You can have 500 good calories or 1,000 bad calories. I'd rather have 500 good calories, right? It's not all just a calorie game. Am I getting enough salt in me? I got a salt deficiency. I need 40 grams of salt a day, for example. Am I eating the right, type of food with the antioxidants and things that keep me healthy? Because within the food sort of pie as well, as it were, there's energy, recovery, and health. And often it's the health one you kind of forget about, right? You're just like, salad, what are you on about? Like, give me pasta. Yeah. But sometimes just a little bit of green, a little bit of veg, a little bit of fruit, like fresh food. Those calories can be like twice as good than just processed stuff, Of course, you can't survive just eating salad. You still have to pack away your 6,000 calories a day. However, it's important to have, like just fresh food if you can. But it's hard because, I'm in the middle of Russia going through service stations that sell vodka and crisps, and that was it, and it can be tough. So I've got that side of my brain. And, if I'm eating well, if I'm drinking enough water, if I'm sleeping the right amount, too much sleep, you're behind the record; too little sleep, you're not recovery. There's not enough recovery. Is my muscle management on top form? Sometimes I'm using the crash barriers, with the 2 little indentations, and I'm using those as a sort of a massage thing to rub my legs, and always it looks a bit dodgy for passing drivers. I apologize now. But do I need to have an ice bath, for example? Can I justify the time of having an ice bath? When I say ice bath, I mean that's finding a cold river generally and just jumping in it, right? But then when you do that, your clothes get wet, and even if you take your shoes off, you might step on something in the river, and then cut your foot. You can't do that. If you keep your shoes on, then all the water runs into your shoes, and then you have wet feet for the whole day. So there's all these things going on in your head. And then motivation. What am I doing to keep myself motivated? Often, if the other 4 are firing, so if I've had good sleep, the right amount of sleep, if I'm hydrated, if I'm not in calorie deficit, and I've slept the right amount, my motivation's usually pretty high. It's usually pretty good. However, if it's not, I have what I call carrots. I dangle carrots, and I plan this before I even leave. What carrots am I going to dangle to stop me from quitting? And these are all super personal. Some of them can be big, like, I want to raise £1 million for charity. That's a pretty big carrot for someone. Some of them could be simple, like, I want a cool pub story. That's it. Why are you doing this, Sean? I want a cool pub story. And at the moment, the biggest carrot I have for myself is I just want my son to be super proud of me. If I give up now and go home, a failure, a loser, I haven't kind of set out what I want to set out, my son's just going to be like, oh, well done, Dad. Well, he's not going to say that. He's only 9 months old. But, in the future, I want him to be super proud of me. I want him to go to school when he's a teenager and go, oh, my dad needed this and needed that. And, so that for me is a really big carrot. But, whatever is up to anyone. Listening to music, mainly, although I listen to mainly podcasts and audiobooks, that helps kind of pass the time and keep my motivation. So that's the one side of my brain. That's kind of super logical. And then the other side is like, oh my God, I need to find a dead dog skull on the side of the road, call him Pedro, and take him across international borders and deal with the logistics of taking a dead animal into Russia later.
Picked up a hitchhiker. He'd been there for a while. Say hello to my little friend. His name's Pedro. He's a right laugh. He is quite heavy though, he's weighing me down. Emotionally and physically, Pedro. Come on. Up your game, bro. Right.
And that's the other side, just kind of making it a bit weird and making it a bit fun and, you know, having a laugh with it. Because if you take it too seriously, it just like compounds the intensity and the pressure on your shoulders, right? Whereas if you choose to sort of make it fun, because inherently it's not fun, you know, it's cycling 170, 200 miles a day is not fun while you're doing it. So you kind of got to find ways of tricking your brain into thinking this is kind of just fun. And weirdly, your like physical performance, I found, is when I picked up Pedro on the side of the road, this dog skull, tied it to the front of my handlebars and just was waxing lyrical to him, discovering the formula for world peace and then immediately forgetting about it because I was too knackered. You know, it's weird. It kind of like lifted my spirits, you know, just that stupid little act. And it's kind of important for me anyway to do that sort of thing.
Cool. And on the sort of the motivation thing, sticking with that, you know, like there's obviously a lot of cyclists out there and a lot of people that are serious cyclists, but they don't do like world records or big cycling events. But they, you know, I know I cycle a fair bit, but I know some quite hardcore cyclists. And most of the guys, you know, they'll go out and do like 80, 100, 120 mile day. But when they come back, while they're cycling, they know that when they've got a home to go back to, a square meal, a warm shower, and a nice comfy bed. So, you know, like they might be doing a hard day in the saddle. It might be in the winter time and it's windy and stuff like that. When you're doing something like this, Europe Cycle Records, and maybe like, especially in the kind of like the first week where you know you've just got weeks and weeks and weeks ahead of you, how do you deal with the fact that at the end of each day, you're going to be sleeping more than likely somewhere rough. You haven't had much to eat. You might be cold and stuff like that. How does that play on your mind? I mean, you haven't really got that kind of nice thing at the end of the day to look forward to, you know?
In the early days, it would stress me out, especially the wild camping. You know, in the early days, my wild imagination just expected some axe-wielding murderer to come and find me in my. Well, I didn't have a tent, but you know, just under the roadside drain or whatever, right? But you soon realize that actually you're the scary one, you know, and actually, you know, you've got to be like, no one's going to walk up to a random tent in a forest, like, because the guy in the tent is probably the scary one. So for the most part, you get left alone. And once you realize that, it just makes it a lot nicer. I actually get a real buzz out of wild camping. I love it. I love that. Sort of when it gets to about 10 o'clock at night, when everyone's dark and most people have kind of gone home, the roads are quiet, you know, then I start looking for my camp spot. And it's actually quite a buzz because I have like a 5-star system, you know, like the worst option by a long way is an actual hotel, right? Because you lose probably 25 minutes at least trying to check in a different language, trying to convince them to put your bike somewhere where you can get it at 3 in the morning. It's happened to me before where they're like, yeah, it's fine. We'll just keep it behind here. And you wake up at 3 in the morning and the reception's closed and the door's locked. And then you have to wait till 7 a.m. for someone to come in, right? And that happened actually on this ride when I crossed over into France over the Pyrenees. Remember when we went down in Tobias, my friend from the Pyrenees, he came and sort of was going to ride with me the next day. And we initially were just going to camp out, but it was pouring with rain, and Tobias didn't have enough kit, and you know, maybe he was soaking wet, wasn't he? So I was like, oh well, I'll just do my one weekly hotel, because the idea was to stay in a hotel once a week, just to wash the salt off my clothes, so I wouldn't get like rashes and chafe and that sort of thing. So we checked in, and I mean, it should have worked out because Tobias speaks perfect French, so we even spoke to them and said, listen, we're going to be leaving at. I think we were going to have a bit of a lie-in because we'd done a big push. 6 a.m. we want to get up and we want to go. And they're like, yeah, no problem. Your bike will be here. Just go through that door. Anyway, we get up at 5:30, get changed, go down there. Door's locked. Go to reception. It was a 24-hour sort of reception-y bit. And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just the night porter. I don't have the key. The manager, he has the key. He comes in at 7." And we were like, "Oh, well, you know." So I lost an hour just faffing around and that sort of thing. So anyway, you know, staying in a hotel is the worst possible option. And then the system goes up. You know, then like, you know, a bus shelter, you know, facing the road. That's kind of a 2-star accommodation for me. 3 stars, a bus shelter down a side road facing away. You know, sometimes the opening's on the back, sometimes the opening's facing the road. If the opening's on the back, it's, you know, that's much better. You know, 4-star will be probably, you know, you get like tilted, like houses on stilts. You can sleep underneath them, or barns, empty barns. That's kind of 4-star. 5-star for me is drain pipes under the road. Like, they're super close to the road, so you don't lose any time going, you know, off into a field down to find the barn or that sort of thing. And they're super quiet. You know, they're super quiet. You actually don't really hear the cars above you. And they're pretty quiet. And they're well, they're always dry unless it's been raining or it's going to rain. So you just kind of keep a lookout on the weather. The downside is loads of other animals also choose to use drain pipes, like wolves and bears and things like that. But I don't think any wolves came sniffing at my feet, but I don't know, because whenever I sleep, I also sleep with earplugs and an eye mask, just to keep the road noise, because I'm trying to sleep as close to the route as possible, just to save time, you know, because you are stealing minutes. You know, over a month, I broke this record, the Europe record, by 20 minutes a day. Right, I think it was 21 minutes a day. Now, 21 minutes is traffic lights in an urban area. You know, so when I was cycling through like the Munich bit, and all, as you know, the German bike paths were amazing. However, like, you know, there's so many pedestrian crossings, and at every roundabout, the bike path swerves all the way down to the side road where there's a safe pedestrian crossing, and then gets back on, and then you kind of lose your rhythm, right? And then also they go through towns, whereas, you know, staying on the main roads. I tried to stay on the main roads in Germany, but man, whew, if there is an available bike path in Germany and you do not use it as a cyclist, I've never experienced road rage quite like it. Honestly, drivers would purposefully try and like cut me up just to make a point, winding down their windows, shouting things at me. But I don't blame them. I think Germany spends like 80 million euros a year maintaining their bike paths, and it's a phenomenal system. So of course, you know, cyclists not using them is a bit of a like, yeah, you know, come on, we've spent all this money for you to have a safe place to cycle. Why are you on the road, right? So I get it. But yeah, so, you know, you're stealing minutes. You know, if I'm losing 4 or 5 minutes going down a track to find a quieter place to sleep, you know, that's a quarter of my daily allowance. You know, so yeah, so the camping thing actually kind of gives me a buzz. But you can't get overwhelmed by the bigger picture. You just got to take each day, you know, like, you just got to realize what your new normal is. And it's a bit like now in lockdown, you know, like when they first announced 3 weeks of lockdown, they were like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to miss out this and miss out on that and X, Y, Z. But actually, when they announced another 3 weeks last week, it's just like, well, you know, this is my new normal now. Like, I get up, I have awesome fun time with my son, which I wouldn't have. I get to paint the stairway because I've been meaning to do that for about 4 months. Getting to do loads of little bits. I'm busy writing 6 books at the moment. When I say busy writing, I've got 6 books in my kind of to-do folder. And I'm starting to work on another one of those. So it's actually great. You know, you kind of, once you just kind of take on board, like, what you can and can't change, you know, like, there's some things you just can't change. You know, I am going to be camping rough, and I am going to be eating rubbish food, and that's just, I've got to make the most of it, you know. But it doesn't make it easy, of course not. It doesn't make it easy, but it makes it easier to cope with in your head, type of thing.
And obviously, I mean, you know, I was there to film with Gav, and we saw all the places that you saw, and, you know, when we started obviously in Portugal, and it's all very pretty, and through Pyrenees, and, you know, even places, you know, say even like Poland was beautiful, wasn't it? But then when we started to get into Ukraine and then Russia, where obviously it's not geared up for cycling at all, really. It's just like motorways and straight roads, and just, you know, it was flat, wasn't it? A lot of it was just hundreds and hundreds of miles of flat and straight roads. Like, I mean, you know, I was lucky that I was with Gav and we could chat, and we were busy filming and doing bits, so we kind of like had things to do, whereas you were just like, all you've got to do is just cycle. I mean, how do you cope when you're just on these straight roads for like hours and hours and hours and days?
Yeah, Ukraine and Russia was tough cycling conditions, and it's not their fault. So it's legal to cycle on motorways in the Ukraine and Russia, which is stupid. It's stupid. I don't know why they allow it, but they do, and because they do, the previous cyclists, they did it because it's the fastest route.
Well, we hardly got any cyclists, did we? I mean, I can't remember. Maybe a couple of cyclists in Russia.
The only cyclists I saw were in towns.
Yeah.
In fact, even the cyclists you bumped into, most of them just don't do road cycling because there's no good like blacktop to just rag it up, you know. So a lot of Russians that I have spoken to since, and a few I chatted to there, they're just all about mountain biking because they just say, well, there's no point in doing road cycling. There's potholes, it's busy, the drivers are rubbish. You know, the road accident deaths in Russia are scarily high. I mean, it's just scary. You know, I think it's 40,000 a year or something. It's terrible. You know, it's really, really terrible. So they just don't do it. But because, you know, I'm just trying to break Jonas Deichmann's record, right? And he's just trying to break the guy before him and before him. And because, you know, the record gets harder and harder, you've just got to take the fastest route, and the fastest route is motorways. So it'd be unfair for me to sort of put this big, because a lot of people just go, oh, Russia's just terrible for cycling. But, like, it's kind of my fault. Like, I chose to cycle on motorways, right? And when I say motorways, you know, a lot of those motorways, as you know, they're just long and straight, and they're kind of slightly rolling, but they are, just does your head in, doesn't it? And also, they're super wide. You know, a motorway there is kind of like a good B road here, long and straight, but with a bit of dirt on the side for if you break down, you can at least pull over. But there's really not enough room for two trucks to come each way and a cyclist. Like, it's just, there's not enough room. So at the beginning, I have mirrors on the bike, and I'm sort of cycling in tri position, you know, and I've got a headwind as well. Remember that headwind I had for the last 1,000 miles, and I'm just like, oh, it's just doing my nut in. Cycling along, looking at my mirrors. You know, if there's a truck coming up behind me, I know it's there. I only cycle with one headphone in. I actually cut the other one off so I'm not tempted to put two headphones in. So I can hear them coming. So I'm looking in my mirror, like, how far away is it? And then I'm judging the one coming in the opposite direction, and I'm like, are all three of us going to pass in the exact same spot? I don't know. Yes, no, yes, no. So in my head, I'm just making these decisions. Like, is it close? Oh, God, you know, has he seen me? Is he pulling over? You can usually tell, you know, when a truck or a car has seen a cyclist, because there's usually just a slight lift off on the accelerator. Yeah. I invented this thing, which I called the Bradley wiggle, which is, if I hear a car coming up and I can hear they're driving fast and there's no uplift on the accelerator, it means they're just going to go boom straight past. What I do is I do this fake little wobble, and I call it the Bradley wiggle, where you just turn your front wheel and it just sends you in a little bit of a snake. All of a sudden, that driver thinks, whoa, this cyclist, he's not super safe on the road. I'm going to give him a bit of a wider berth. Much like drivers will always give children on bicycles a massive wide berth, because in their head, they're like, right, you know, they're not super safe, right? Yeah. So I do that. I mean, it's not recommended. You know, I wouldn't do it in Britain, for example. I think British drivers are very good with cyclists. There's this big online war, you know, cyclists versus cars. I think it's all bollocks. You know, it's just headline. It makes headlines, right? I hate it. I hate that phrase, the cyclists versus, you know, the war, the war, and they use the word war. It's terrible. You know, there's kids growing up who maybe can't afford a car with their parents, so they cycle everywhere, which is amazing. You know, they're going to grow up thinking it's a war. You know, it's terrible language. But you know, for the most part, I find British drivers phenomenally good compared to the rest of the world. You know, you go cycle across India, and all of a sudden, you know, Britain's amazing. So yeah, so I was doing all this maths. Should I pull over? But if I pull over, there's probably a 3-inch drop between the tarmac and the dirt next to me. The dirt is, you never know whether it's hard packed or your wheel's going to slip into it. So you slow down to sort of maybe 4 or 5 miles an hour, drop down so you don't tear the sidewall of your tire, cycle for a bit, wait for them to pass. Sometimes stop, lift your bike back onto the tarmac, carry on going, or you sort of swerve out and like try bunny hop up. Anyway, it's tiring. It's tiring just making all these calculations. So eventually, I think it was after 3 days of this, in my head, I was like, right, if there's a truck coming up behind me, I'm just going to pull over. No questions. Even if I can see in my mirror that they're going to give me a wide berth, it's just, I need to take that decision-making out of my head, because that decision-making was taking up brain space for other decision-making, like, hydration and, the other 4 or 5 pistons, right? And as soon as I did that, I started, not stressing out that I was going to get run over, because I just make the call, right? I'm in the dirt for a bit, yeah. And I just had to adjust my ride time and my sleep time and that sort of thing. And well, actually, I didn't. I just took a massive hit on mileage. But luckily, I'd built up enough of a buffer by the time I hit Russia that I could afford to lose an hour or two a day, really, by the end. But it was touch and go, because at one point I was going, my average was so slow with this headwind that I could have cycled 24 hours a day, and I think I was going to potentially lose the record by half an hour. And that was just terrible, But you're right, just those long straight roads with a headwind. At least when it's hilly, you've got the downhills as a bit of a recovery. But when you against a headwind on a long straight road, it's basically like cycling uphill the whole time. So 7 miles an hour is what I was doing pretty much, just into this terrible headwind. And it's hard for it not to play on your mind. I think the only reason I kind of got through it was I was ahead of the record.
Yeah.
And I was so far ahead by the time I hit Russia. I think I was 26 hours ahead by the time I hit the Russian border. So I'd built up about an hour a day on the record. And then my Russian leg, I lost nearly 3 hours a day. Nearly 3 hours a day, every day, because of the headwind. So, imagine I'd been tight. Imagine I was only like half an hour ahead by the time I hit Russia. I wouldn't have recovered mentally from that, I don't think.
No. And talking of the sort of last leg as well, like Russia, Ukraine and Russia. I mean, obviously, when it started in going through Spain and places like that, the food was of an abundance. I know, in France, there was a few times, wasn't there, where everything was shut. Where small villages and that you found it hard to get food. But generally, the western side of the end of the ride was kind of the easy part regarding food. But then, as we got into Russia, not only is the food quite, because obviously Gav and I were eating there as well, and we had time to kind of butt around and work out what was what. But you're just pulling up to these places and wanting to get something, and some of the food was quite random. How did you deal with kind of the poor diet and sort of lack of good food in going through those parts?
Well, actually, I mean, you say the West was easier. It was kind of easier, but also it was kind of hard. So, Portugal, I mean, I was only there for 24 hours, probably not even that, to be honest. So I got across Portugal really in a day. And yeah, there was kind of good places to find food in that day. I don't really remember much because I had quite a lot of food from the start. So I sort of packed in about 6,000 calories on my bike before I started. So I didn't stop that much in Portugal. Spain was tough because everything was closed. You know what it was like. Once it got to sort of midday-ish, loads of places were just closed. And then they would only open, some of them, from my perspective, around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And the good thing is they opened late, so I could get food 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night often in Spain. But a lot of stuff was closed. So that was real tough. But luckily, because I'd done the Portugal and the Spain section on the previous record, it made it a little bit easier for me because I knew where I was stopping. I knew where there were service stations because I remembered it from the time before, right? Once I got into France, though, so I got into France on a Saturday, Friday night. That was it. Got in a Friday night, and the French leg was going to take me 3 days, which was Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And my friend Tobias, who I spoke to, came and joined me, who lives in the Pyrenees in France. He was like, he joked, he said, mate, the whole of France closes on like Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I'm like, nah, come on. Really? He's like, genuinely? Like, it's going to be hard for you to find, you know, you probably get some boulangeries open in the morning, but for the most part, things are closed, especially on Sundays and often on Mondays. I was like, come on, man, no way. Like, I'm going to find food. But it was true, you know, it was really difficult to find stuff that was open. For example, you know, I think, you know, I hate to admit it, but I have an unhealthy volume of McDonald's and fast food on these records.
Yeah.
Because all the thing that is stereotypically bad about fast food is pretty good for ultra cycling. It arrives quickly, it's fatty, it's salty, it's high in calories. You know, that's all the stuff I need, right? But even like McDonald's would only open at like midday on a Sunday, you know, and bearing in mind I was getting up at 3:58, you know, that's a long chunk of your morning before you've got food. And you're probably in negative energy anyway because you've not probably eaten enough the night before. So yeah, I mean, so that actually was hard. Germany was the first place where all of a sudden service... Oh yeah, that was the other thing. Was it Spain? Often service stations in Spain don't have a shop attached like in the UK where you can go and buy food. It was just the fuel, like you, and maybe a window, but often not even that. Often some of them were just self-service, right? Yeah. But once I hit Germany, Germany all of a sudden had something that felt more familiar to the UK. So the service stations were Shell and BP, and it had the forecourts and the food and everything. There was cafes that sold food that I recognized and that sort of thing. So that was kind of 2 days where it was good. And then you know, Czech Republic, Poland. Again, that was I didn't find that too difficult. I found that okay. I didn't really struggle to find food or water. It wasn't too bad. There was sort of Lidl and Aldi and things like that which I could find, or their versions of it anyway. But yeah, once I hit the Ukraine, then the benefit was because I was on motorways, I just had motorway service stations fairly regularly. You know, sort of at least every 100 miles I would get something. The downside is it was just terrible motorway food, you know, and it took ages to work out what things were in different languages. So the most part, I would just run in and I'd grab a big packet of crisps, because crisps are usually about 520 calories per 100 grams. There's good fat, good salt, good carbs in crisps. If I could find some peanut butter, I'd grab a tin of peanut butter. I'd grab some like packet croissants. I'd get a milkshake and some water. And that was sort of my go-to, and it was just terrible. You know, there was just no fresh food in there. The health corner of my nutrition pie was just like out the window. So that was, yeah, I mean, I was just trying to live on that. I mean, I was also buying noodles, packet noodles, and just eating them like crisps, but actually they're not very calorific. You know, one of those little, you know, like you get in the bag noodles that you just tear up and throw boiling water on it. I think there were only like 250 calories for the whole packet. You know, it's not nearly enough. So it was difficult. My saving grace actually in Russia was eventually we found the sign, which I thought was hotel this whole time, and it's stupid because it looks exactly like cafe. It's K and O with a little squiggle, a line through it, F and E, right? Café. I don't know, for some reason in my tired state, it just always looked like a hotel. Like I just thought, oh, that's the sign for hotel in Russian. But it turns out it's the sign for cafe, and they're often 24 hours because they're the big trucker cafes. So there, what I would do, and it's kind of how I've toured when I'm racing in the past. You just hope there's another person in the cafe with some food on his plate, and if it looks kind of edible, you just point, you walk in. Because again, I'm stealing minutes. You know, I don't want to be going, oh, what do you want? So I just sort of pointed that. But actually, the one thing I did notice, the further east I got, is the more willing the people in service stations were to speak English. I don't know if you found that, Kev. Like they actually were kind of super excited about it. You know, they're like, "Oh, I get to practice my English with someone." And they were really good. Like I met a few cafe waitresses who were like studying to be doctors. It was amazing. So they were like really intelligent, and they were just doing it for their side job, and the education was super important to them. And yeah, I was great. So actually, we sort of got chatting, and you know, they would, you know, often it was just sort of just give me a ton of rice and a little bit of protein. Usually, you know, there was sort of bits of chicken, I guess, and that kind of kept me going. But you know, I easily lost. I mean, as I said, you know, Lee Timmis, who got the supported record after me doing 240 miles a day, you know, 40 miles of that a day is nutrition, I reckon. You know, if you just change your diet to the optimum diet for you, whatever that is, you would do another 40 miles a day. Easy. You know, so it's a game of just trying to survive. You know, can you survive the quickest? Can you live in survival mode the quickest? You know, when you do self-supported stuff, really, that's kind of what it boils down to, I guess.
And what was your lowest point on that ride? There must have been a few.
Headwinds in Russia, man.
Yeah.
You just, if you're not a cyclist, I always feel. I remember when I wasn't a cyclist, I would read a few cycling articles and things, and I always moan about the wind, and I'm like, come on, man, like really, like you can't see it. Is it really that bad? But as you all know, whoever's a cyclist, you know, it's just this invisible army just like fighting your face, you know, and on top of just the natural like wind, you've got the wind from the trucks. And that's a side wind, a vortex wind that sucks you in, wind that hits you in the face, you know. So it's just soul destroying, because it's also the record slipping away from me. That's completely out of my control. You know, it's not like I was fit enough. Yes, my diet wasn't great, but I was kind of managing. I was sleeping the right amount. I'd wake up at 3:58 every morning and just kind of put in the hours. So everything was good, but just this wind, you know, and it was just unlucky, you know. I was just unlucky, you know. You look at all the forecasts, and I did all my research, and it was kind of like 50-50 in Russia, but the benefit is I'd probably get a tailwind in Europe, on you know, Portugal and Spain and France and Germany, like with the westerlies, but it might be a bit swirly in Russia. But I thought, well, I'll take a hit. I'll take a risk and do it that way, because the option is you can go both ways. You can start in Russia and go to Portugal. If I did it again, I would start in Russia 100%, and I'd give myself a window, and I'd wait for tailwinds, and I'd do the Russian leg, because it'd be way easier to catch up mileage in sort of Spain and Portugal, or France, Spain and Portugal, if you were that far behind, because you could do longer hours because the roads are safer, you know. Whereas in Russia, anything after sort of 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, just the conditions were terrible. It's dark. Cars don't have a very stringent MOT sort of certificate ratings. So, you know, people are driving with cracked windscreens. You know, unfortunately, the statistics for drunk driving in that part of the world is also pretty scary, you know. So if I had been super close, it would have been impossible to claw back mileage going that way, heading west, heading east rather. Whereas if I was heading west, I would have been able to have a far better chance of clawing back lost mileage. So I think if I did it again, or if anyone wants to try and break my unassisted record, I would say start in Russia. You know, even if you have to wait there a couple of weeks, you know, for a good tailwind, a good pressure of tailwind, I would do it. I'd do it that way. But yeah, headwinds, man.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't notice. You know, we were in the van. Obviously, we knew it was windy, but you know, when you're driving, it's just like you know. But we could see you suffering. Yeah, it's we did feel for you that last week. You know.
I mean, eventually I just covered up my speedometer. I was just like, you know, I just don't want to see it. So I had a buff, and I just wrapped it around the cycle computer. Just staring down at 7 miles an hour, you know, on a downhill. No matter how strong your head is, you're you're dying inside, you know.
And what were some of the highlights? Obviously, the end, getting the record was obviously the best one, but some others along the way.
You know, I don't know if there were any. Highlight. I mean, the rapeseed fields, like watching the sunrise and the sunset, and the sunrise coming over some of those rapeseed fields was pretty spectacular. Yeah, watching the sunrise and sunset every single day for a month. You know, many of us don't really get to do that often in life, so that was pretty cool. Some of the starry nights, you know, for those 10 seconds while I was awake, you know, I'd give myself a 14-minute window between stopping to being in my sleeping bag and asleep. Like, it had to be super quick, just like in, boom, in my clothes, sleep. And I generally fall asleep pretty quickly. Once my earplugs are in, my eye mask is on, boom, gone. But, you know, for those few seconds, I'm looking up at the sky going, oh, wow, I wonder if I'll see a shooting. Fall asleep, you know. So that was kind of nice. But for the most part, there was no real highlights, genuinely, you know, like. And in fact, in a way, if there were like these amazing highlights, I probably wasn't pushing it hard enough. So, you know, I needed to push it harder because, you know, for the fitness level I was at my red line the whole time. You know, I could I have done it quicker? Yes, but not under those conditions and under the fitness I was in. I could have been fitter. I probably didn't do enough training. I did it. I wish I had done a little bit more power training. I had a good sort of endurance base and I had a good injury avoidance base, but I struggled on the hills. If I'd had a little bit more power, especially, I'm quite small. You know, I was probably 65 kgs on that ride, but within a week. I don't have a lot of power muscles. You know, my FTP is like 200 watts, 210 watts. Really, I can't really push it much higher. I'm too small. But I could have done at least a little bit of more power just to help me on those long straights. I could have really got into time trial mind a little bit more. And if you're in sort of your time trial head, you're either buying yourself a little bit more recovery time at the end of the day, or you're going a little bit further. It depends what you need more, the distance or the recovery.
Yeah, sure.
But you have that option when you're going a little bit quicker.
And when obviously I know, but when you crossed over there was a couple of hard borders, wasn't there, going from Poland into the Ukraine and then Ukraine into Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, Gav, do you remember you decided to go for a different border crossing to Gav and I? I think we both went through the border at the same time, but it must have been about 20 miles apart. And Gav and I, had a bit of a time going through that border, like 4 hours, and because obviously we had all our film kit and stuff like that. But you tell everyone about when you went through. I mean, it's
So firstly, I didn't realize. I thought the borders would start from Germany, Czech Republic. I just was so naive to it. I thought that's going to be like, in my head, it was like when the euro changes, that's when there's going to be an actual border guard. I didn't think it would be heavily policed, but I thought there would at least be like some sort of toll booth where they go, you show your passport. And bear in mind, I now have a dead animal skull on the front of the bike, right? I remember that, Germany into Czech Republic, I'm like, oh, should I get rid of it? Should I throw away the dog skull, Pedro? Should I throw away Pedro and not get in trouble, or should I try and get him across the border? And then if I get stopped, I'm going to have to ask, I don't know what the fine is. If you take an apple into Australia, it's like $100 fine, right? I've got this dead animal carcass. And I'm like, so I thought, okay, so I took the buff off my head. I sort of wrapped it around Pedro on the front of the tri-bars, the aero bars, and was like super nervous. And I'm like, no, but I can't throw him away. Like, we've got through so much. I got him on day 2 on the side of the road in Spain. I feel sorry for Pedro. Like, we're going to have this adventure. Come on, man. Like, let's do it. So I get to the Czech border, and there's still all the buildings of where the border used to be. But since 2007, the Schengen area opened up. There's no longer anything. So I was like, oh, cool. So went through that. Same with Poland. Remember, I was trying to find a hotel that night on the Poland Czech Republic border. So I actually crossed into Poland, couldn't find anywhere, had to go back into the Czech Republic to eventually find a hotel, because I had charging issues. Something was wrong in my charging setup, so my phone was dying, and I had no power left, and I needed my navigation, so I needed a hotel just to charge my battery bank and my phone up, because something was wrong, whether it was the dynamo or the cable. It landed up being one of the cables into my power bank in the end, but it took me ages to work it out. There's so many connections, there's so many variables between the dynamos. So you've got the dynamo, then the connection between the dynamo and the cable, then the cable goes up to a voltage regulator. You've got the connection between that and the voltage regulator. You've got the cable itself, you've got the voltage regulator itself, then there's another cable from that to a USB port. Could be that cable, then there's a second cable from that USB port into your battery bank. It could be the cable, it could be the battery bank, it could be the connector into the battery bank, it could be the battery bank itself, it could be the cable out of the battery bank into your phone, it could be the connectors on each end, it could be your phone. You know, I mean, it took me like 5 days of wiggling various things to work out what was wrong, right? So that border didn't really matter either. So the first one was the Ukraine border. My first dilemma there, and it happens always when I'm cycle touring and doing border crossings, is it's kind of a mix whether the border puts cyclists with the cars or in the pedestrian bit. And you know, sometimes you just cycle through with the cars, and that's tough as well, because you know, you kind of don't want to stand in the queue as a cyclist. So often you kind of, you know, want to go to the front, but it's hit and miss whether the driver is going to let you in. So you kind of just be like big smiles, you know, hands together, be like, please, can I go ahead? And usually they kind of go. Some of them are idiots and they'll try and, you know, run you over because why do you get to jump the queue? But then sometimes you get put with the pedestrians and you go down a different way. So for the Ukraine border, remember the queues, man, they were like miles long. So anyway, I jumped the queues. I went up to the front of the cycle bit, front of the cars, and there was big, remember there's big borders, like the gates were down and all the toll booths were empty. It's like they just decided to go on lunch or something, I don't know. And at the front, people had deck chairs out, drinking vodka, like the stereotype of stereotypes was happening at the front. It was beautiful. They're all just like on it, you know, having a party and playing music out their phones. So no, I stopped and I figured I'll just wait here for the border to open, you know, with the cars, because I kind of didn't see if there was a pedestrian bit. Anyway, this very inebriated chap. I mean, I can't tell if he was Ukrainian or Russian, but he had biggest smile on his face. He comes up to me, puts his arm around my shoulder. He's like, "No, cyclist, that way!" And he sort of pointed over this, like, you know, the plastic bollards they put on the side of the road sometimes with roadworks, the sort of orange ones with the fluorescent a little bit. Often they fill them up with water to not weigh them down. Anyway, and they're quite high. I mean, they're sort of 1.5 meters high. I mean, you know, you can climb over it, but it's a bit annoying, right? Anyway, he's like, "No, you can go this way." And he runs up to this bollard and just like gives it this like karate kick and just like smashes open. He's like, "Go that way." And he points over this fence and he showed me where to get through. He's like, "Cyclists, go that way." And it's like, "Oh, brilliant." So anyway, he pointed me into the direction of going with the pedestrians. And that saved me potentially a few hours. So then I just was walking with my bike. Again, I wrapped Pedro up and got through Ukraine. That was no bother. But the Russian one, that was the real one. So, you know, we took different routes because the southern route that I'd done my research. The previous record holder, Jonas Deichmann, he had taken a route which was this northern route. So there's pretty much 2 highways running parallel to each other that I could have taken. So I would have started on this bit in Ukraine, and I either would have gone completely east to do a southern route, or would have gone up sort of 45 degrees to a northern route and taken the northern route. They then join again, it was about 4 or 5 days into Russia, where the southern route goes up again. So it was kind of 2 sides of a parallelogram. So they were kind of equidistant, really. I think the southern route was about 20 miles longer, maybe. But, you know, in my research, I was looking at all his Instagram feeds and his Facebook posts and videos. And he was just saying, these are the worst roads, his northern route that he did. The worst roads I've ever cycled on. I feared for my life every single moment. You know, this is the worst conditions I've ever cycled in. So obviously I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to take that road. I'm going to obviously do the southern tier. Like, I can't justify terrible conditions. I'll do the southern tier. It can't be any worse. It was worse, but at the time I just thought, well, that'd be the thing. And even though it was a little bit longer, I just thought I must do it. But it landed up being terrible, or probably just equally as bad. The downside is the border crossing that I was going to have to take was this tiny. It was a dirt road, bumpy dirt road to get to it. Really, I mean, I didn't even know whether it was going to be in operation. I didn't know whether they would allow cyclists through, but I just had to wing it. Like, I just didn't want to do that. If I'd had to turn around and go back to the northern one, I was going to lose about 8 hours, which, you know, luckily I had in the bag at the time. But in hindsight, it probably could have cost me the record, because I only broke the record by about 8 hours in the end. So no, I get to the Ukraine bit, and first thing it's just people with guns. All of a sudden, it's just everyone has a big military gun. So, you know, you go through one bit, passport please, and they point you to another barrier. It's all the barbed wire, pretty old, like, you know, pretty rustic, where they've just like dragged some barbed wire coils across the road with a drum. There's a little bit of a barrier. You get through that, and, you know, no smiling. Like, it's the first border where, you know, all the other border crossings, it's like, oh, there's a weird hairy ginger guy on a bicycle. Oh, he must be interested. Let's communicate with him. But certainly, I think in the Russian, you know, rule book for border guards, it's you will never smile ever for the rest of your life type thing. And it's stern. It's like, here, there. Anyway, and then at one point they send me, like, I'm at the 4th or 5th window, and they're like, bicycle, come. You know, the English is pretty sort of simple, as it were, but it gets the point across. So they take my bike, and then they were just like, take this off. You know, what is this? And that was the going, like, what is this? What is this? What is this? And they were everything. They were pointing at everything, absolutely everything. At this point, I had to cover up Pedro, because I still had Pedro with me, because I decided to risk it. So I've got him across all the Ukraine border. So I sort of had my helmet, and I took my helmet off, and I draped it over the front of the aero bars. So the helmet was kind of covering Pedro, hanging on the front, because the helmet was over him. So they're looking at everything. They're sort of like, you know, I had a toothbrush taped just with Velcro on my back stay. So that was the toothbrush I'd use for to clean my chain. And then I had a second toothbrush also Velcroed on my front handlebar. So in the morning, my routine was get on the bike and then brush your teeth on the bike and just that sort of thing. So I had my toothbrush on the front aero bars with a little bit of toothpaste, which I actually had run out by then already, to be honest. And then they were like, why this toothbrush? Why do you have two? Why is this one black? What does this bike tool do? And then what does this tool on the bike tool do? You know, literally, it's like, what is this one? Oh, it's a screwdriver. What is this one? It's another screwdriver, but a flat version. What does this do? Changes, you know, this is to do the tighten the spokes. Literally pointing everything. And then they told me to get my bag out. And they were sort of like, what's in your bag? And they opened the bag. And then you just said in Russian to someone, I can't remember what I think you've translated it in the film. It's just like, this guy stinks, man. The guy closed the bag or something. Well, I didn't know what he said at the time. And then, I mean, this was like an hour of like just everything, you know, like what are these pills, for example? And it was my hay fever pills, just so, because I get a bit of hay fever. So I was like, what? This is hay fever pills. And that sort of thing. You know, oh yeah, that was the other thing. I'm really interested. I've managed to find the tiniest. It was probably 5 centimeters high, bit of spray lubricant oil, like WD-40, but different one, for my chain. I was like, this is like an ultra cyclist dream, finding the world's smallest little spray can of lubricant. Yeah, they're very interested in that as well. But anyway, this happened. I get through that. Eventually, they stamp my passport. I'm thinking, wow, I'm out of Russia. Amazing. Woo! But actually, that was just the bit to leave Ukraine. Yeah. I then went for like no man's land, just about a mile. And then I got to the Russian bit. And so I get to the Russian window. And again, stern-faced lady, just no smiling. Give her my passport. She looks through for the Russian visa, looks at the Russian visa and goes, I'm sorry, out of date. And I'm like, my heart just sinks. And I'm like, you're joking. Did I put the wrong date on the form when I filled it out? And I looked and it was out of date. And then I looked, I was like, 2017. I was like, no. Sorry, that's the visa from the previous attempt. So in 2017, when I was going to go for it, I had a visa for that, but it hadn't been stamped. And this was for her was a red flag. Like, why did you have a Russian visa for 2017 and not use it? So she's like, I said, no, there's another one. And then she's like, no, this is dodgy. Right, go there. And she just pointed me to this sort of like this building which had fluorescent lights, but it was empty. So anyway, I went into this building, and it was what I guessed would have been about 3 or 4 tellers, like in a bank type thing, where but the shutters were down. So the shutters were down, but you could see that's where obviously people would queue up for something. So I'm waiting. I'm probably waiting half an hour, and I just don't know what's going on. Eventually, this kind of young guy, probably in his late 20s, comes through the side door, like opens up. Come with me. I'm like, oh god. He takes me down this corridor, and it's like the movies, man. So down the corridor into this interrogation room with like video camera, recording equipment on my face, and he's sitting there and he's flicking through my passport, and he's like, where you come from? What are you doing? In these situations, I've sort of realized the word Guinness has a lot of clout in most of the world, actually. It really is super important. So when you say the word Guinness World Record, they go, oh, and they kind of get excited by it. Oh, this is important. It's an important, legitimate thing that you're doing, right? So I'm telling you about this. And I remember when I said, oh, I'm going for the Guinness record, a little smile happened on the side of his face. And I thought, right, I've got him. I'm safe. But then straight away, he remembered his training, like, do not smile. He's like, okay, right, no smiling, yes. But he was like, how many kilometers you cycle each day? Where do you sleep? He can speak pretty good English. And, at the end, he was actually pretty cool. So anyway, he eventually said, oh, you're fine, go back to the window. And then I went back to the window, and then she still didn't believe me. So, like, he actually shouted from the room, like, from in there. He's like, no, it's okay, let him through. So I get through, and then eventually there's a few other truck drivers also being, like you guys, probably strip searched and everything, like proper big trucks. Eventually I get to the last window. Now, the biggest mistake I made is I thought I was in the clear, so I'd taken my helmet off and put it on. And obviously now Pedro was like on full show. So I get to the last window, and all of a sudden there was no one in the window, but there was a man with a dog just waiting by the last booth. And of course the dog, what does it do? Goes straight for Pedro and just starts sniffing it. And I'm like, oh man, I've just blown it. So like the first thing I said is like, I was like, oh, I just found it back there in Ukraine, thinking that maybe a Ukrainian dead dog was like better than a Spanish one. I don't know. And he's just like, no, what's this? And then now he's shouting across back to the people at the beginning that I went through. Like, no, he's shouting something in Russian. And I'm thinking, oh my god, this is terrible. Anyway, what looked like the boss guy, he started walking over. And it was quite far. It was probably like 50 meters between us, maybe even a little bit further. And he starts walking towards, and I'm thinking, right, this is game over. And then something happened over the loudspeaker. Like something in Russian was just like, da 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 da. And all of a sudden they all turned and they started walking really quickly back to the building where I had the interrogation. And then the guy with the dog, he looked at me and he's just like, okay, go. And he just let me go. And I was like, sweet, I'm out of here. So I just literally jumped, and I just cycled so fast. And I was just like out of town. And once I got sort of out of, probably a mile out, I remember stopping. I did a little bit of video to camera, going like, I've made it.
We've made it into Russia. We're across the border. Yes, Pedro, we've made it. They didn't steal him. I got across. Thought they were gonna. Oh God, there's people there. I thought they were gonna maybe confiscate him, but we made it through. Oh, I can't believe it. 1,200 miles to go. Then we're there. Ufa, come on. Come on, Pedro, we've got this.
But yeah, that whole thing was sort of 3 hours, really.
Yeah.
4 hours to just get through those. It didn't stress me out, though, because I knew that Jonas and the previous record holders probably had the same sort of time penalty there. So it didn't bother me too much. But yeah, it was, I managed to somehow take a dead dog across the whole of Europe. And I still got it. I managed to get it home. Like, I took it on the flight. It was in my hold in my cabin luggage. But it makes a mockery of you taking your shoes off at the airport, right? Meanwhile, I got a dead animal all the way across back from there. I have to say, if anyone is in the world of PETA and everything, I did bleach it when I got back, and it was long dead. It was nothing living on it for sure. Yeah. Anyway, that was the adventures of border crossings.
Yeah. I mean, ours was similar, as you know, but you know, like, because we were worried that we weren't going to get through, because we knew we'd get through eventually, but there was a point where we thought they were just going to confiscate all our kit, you know.
Well, yeah, with cameras, they automatically think you're just sort of a journalist coming to expose something dodgy in their country, right? That's their first go-to thought. Cameras, you must be coming here to do something dodgy. So yeah, you're right. It's tough, tough getting cameras.
It was funny because when you said about there's obviously the Ukraine side of the border, then the Russian side, and Gav and I, just being a couple of wallies like we were, you know, we kind of cruised through. Like when we got to the Ukraine border, they sort of checked. We showed our passports and bits and bobs, and then they went, "Okay, you can go." We went, "Yes." So we're driving through that no man's land bit, going, "Yeah," and then like Gav's driving, and I'm like, "What's all that up ahead?" And then it just suddenly dawned on us that there's the actual Russian bit. We went, "Oh no!" And then Gav kind of panicked, and for some reason he drove up onto this weighbridge. And that was for like, obviously lorries and things like that. But he just thought because we were in that big camper van, that's where he should go. And then we just sat on this weighbridge for about 5 minutes, and then realised, and then it just all unfolded. And yeah, I mean, we did the same. We went. They checked us over, pulled everything out, and we went from one room to another, and then back, and then we had to pay for this and sign that, and yeah, obviously we got through. But yeah, it's that's an interesting part of the trip. Yeah, it was cool. Okay, cool. And so the sort of last, well, a couple more questions. One of them is, how did you feel when you finally, or when you was just approaching the finish line? You know, the last few hundred meters, as you obviously you knew you'd done it.
You know what? I just kind of felt relief. Like, it's weird. There was no like real joyous emotion in me. Like, I didn't feel the need to get my phone out and be like, I've made it. Oh my God, this has taken me 10 years to do. Like, there was none of that. Like, it's weird. Like, I just was in this kind of like, oh, thank God I've done it. You know. And I mean, even you guys, you guys were there just like filming the bit as I cycle up to the end, and I didn't even remember any of that. Like, it just like wasn't important. Like, there was no like, like I always see these people who finish these big things and they're talking to the camera and they're like, oh my God, I've just done it. Whoa! And they phone their parents and their wives, and they just like, it's all like very vocal and like celebratory, and it's weird. I didn't feel like that was what I wanted from it. Like, I didn't want it to just be this big public like shout out like, oh my God, I've done it. Like, it was just this little moment to myself, and and I feel bad because now you watch the film and it's nice. Like, the end of the documentary is exactly how it was. It was just this moment of kind of calm quietness where I just had suddenly realized in my head, like, I didn't want the fanfare. Like, this has just been a personal journey for me for ages. But I feel sorry because I know documentary makers kind of want the big like money shot at the end, and like, sorry guys, that wasn't me. But it was like, yeah, I mean, for me, it was just this relief, relief. I'd finally got the third and final F that it took me 10 years to get. Relief that I survived. Like, I didn't get run over. I've been run over once seriously in America where I nearly could have quite easily been killed on the bike. Back in 2012 when I cycled around the world, so it was just a relief that I'd kind of finished. My wife was super scared about me, my family, that I was going to get run over. Like, and of course, the only way I justified in my head is I've been run over once already. No one gets run over twice. So I've had my turn, right? It was a relief to just get off that saddle. I'd been, the saddle was the probably a little bit thinner than I should have had for my biology with my backside, and it was just starting to hurt at the end. I even bought a second pair of bib shorts just to cushion it a little bit. It was just, everything was just sore. So it was just kind of this moment of like, oh, thank goodness that's over. Like, I don't want to sit on a bicycle seat ever again for the rest of my life. That was kind of it, really. That was it. And then the second thing that happened was I got a message from my sister going, well, I'm glad you finished, Sean. Well done. I hope you can still make my wedding in South Africa in a few days' time. So, and remember this panic. So between finishing, well, actually, remember, I didn't finish at the right spot. So I finished at the statue. So I looked at Jonas Deichmann's Instagram, and he had this amazing picture of him by this famous statue. You can't miss it. Like, when you come into Ufa, it's overlooking the countryside. You kind of come in, you can see it opposite the river. You go across the bridge, and you get. So I'm like, well, that's obviously the end. So right, and go to the end, where Jonas had his picture, and I'm like, well, we've done it. Way, I've got the record, or whatever hours it was. And then I was like, I don't know, something in my head was like, I don't remember. Like, let me just check, because Guinness have not weird, but they choose where the beginning and end is, and it's often like the town centre or the city hall or a train station from one place, like or the coastline or whatever. And I just thought, like, is this actually the end? Like, so anyway, I went onto my emails and I was researching it. Firstly, it was hard to find because I applied for this record in 2016, so that email was like way back in my emails. So I'm like searching for it. Eventually found it, and I read it. It says, right, the record is from Cabo da Roca in Portugal to Ufa train station. And I was like, what? This is not the train station. Definitely not. So I went and searched for it. It was like another half an hour away. I was like, oh, man. So imagine that. I could have quite easily flown home and not actually broken the record officially. Like, people say, would you have done it again? I was like, hell no. No, I don't really need the certificate badly. I know I've done it, right? And so anyway, I got to the station. But then this was like, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening? I had a 6 a.m. flight the next day. So between 5 o'clock in the evening, on like, what was it? Was it a Friday or Saturday?
I think it was Friday. Sure,
yeah,
Friday
night. I slept to find a bike box somewhere. And this is when once I'd finished the record, I'm like, right, I need help. So you guys were super awesome at this. So you had your Russian fixer guy. What was his name?
Oh, God, blimey, I can't remember his name. I should do. Gavel, no, yeah. He was a cool guy.
He was cool. Yeah. He was your fixer in Russia.
Yeah.
And anyway, he was, I know a bike shop, I'll go sort it out. And he and also duct tape. It's quite hard to find duct tape at 6 o'clock on a Friday evening. So I found a bike box, found some duct tape, found a hotel that we stayed in. Gav stayed in his van, didn't he? He was like, I'm not leaving my van. So you and I, we got a hotel. That was cool. And packed up the bike and everything. And then had to find a taxi that would fit a bike box at 4 in the morning to get me out so I could eventually, get to South Africa for my sister's wedding.
It was Arto, is his name, Arto.
Oh, yeah. He was cool. I mean, I only met him every time we sort of stopped at services when you guys would film me. But yeah, he was cool. You guys were communicating completely through Google Translate. When you would say something into it and show it to him. He would read it in Russian, reply in Russian, and then show you in English. Technology was great, wasn't it? Yeah, so that was the sort of second reality of like, right, real life has now started, Sean. Like, you need to like go and see your wife and then fly to South Africa for your sister's wedding. So,
yeah, I couldn't believe it because I mean, like we had a couple of whiskeys, didn't we, in the hotel that night, celebratory whiskeys.
Yeah.
And he was like, I've got to go to bed. And I'm like, obviously you were knackered, but he was like, I'll be up at 5 in the morning. And I'm like, gee. Do you remember I didn't book my flight for a couple of days afterwards?
Yeah, exactly.
I was in kind of rush.
Ideally, you just want to have some time to chill out and, unwind and like just go over in your head what you're doing. But like all of a sudden I was just like, right, I need to get home. I was home for a couple of days, flew to South Africa. I was there for a week for my sister's wedding. Like it probably took me a few months to kind of really go, oh god, right, okay, now let's look back. I can look back at photos, and I do voice recording for the book. So to write the book, I did all my diary entries on a voice recorder. So I listened to those back, typed them out, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was weird. It was the ending that kind of was the way for me. It was always going to be. It's been this personal journey for me for the last decade, and I didn't feel like I needed to have a finish line with loads of people, and a lot of people. I see loads of people who get to the end of their big challenges, and there's always like huge crowds and everything. And I don't know. And I've had that. Don't get me wrong. All the stuff I've done in Britain, when I finished my Length of Britain run down in Land's End, there was hundreds of people. When I finished my triathlon in Lulworth Cove, there's getting hundreds of people all cheering me in there, and it is amazing. It is amazing. Of course, it is. It's amazing to have all the support and people there. But this one was just so long in the making, 10 years, that I kind of just wanted it to be this kind of thing. And also, no one's going to fly out to Ufa. To be honest, like it's nothing. There's nothing there. It's just a big city, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. No, amazing. No, it was an incredible effort, mate. Yeah, you did well.
You guys did well. The documentary is amazing. Like, super proud of it. It just came out on Amazon. Shameless plug.
Yeah,
And it's great, man. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's cringy for my wife though, because she's in it and she's like, "Oh my god, I can't watch myself."
She was good. She did well.
Yeah, she did
well. We enjoyed making it. Okay, mate. Well, yeah, that's been absolutely brilliant. Thanks for your time. That's been fascinating.
Yeah, thanks you, Kev. And good luck with lockdown. I'm learning a new skill, so I decided in lockdown to learn the harmonica.
I thought I saw that in your hand.
Yeah.
Go on, then, give us a little go.
I've had like 3 days practice. This is all I've got. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to wing it. I just made that up. It's the perfect lightweight. So I'm like, I'm cutting the fabric off the end of my zips, right? The harmonica is the perfect lightweight, ultra endurance instrument of choice. And this is going to be with me forever now. I'm going to just become. I'm already really annoying. My wife. In fact, the first time I played it, my son cried instantly. Like, he looked at me with this like weird expression, and then he was just like. I was like, that's not a good start.
No.
It's perfect. You just fit my jersey back pocket on the bike. I reckon I could probably even play it on the aero bars. Elbows down. I reckon it's good. Anyway, sorry for those of you who've just ruined your eardrums, but I promise to get better.
Keep practicing if I was in.
I'll see you later. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Cheers. Nice one.